Let's talk about Gaza. Urgent aid en route to Gaza amid severe food crisis.
We're on the verge of starvation. A charity aid ship has now left Cyprus carrying nearly 200 tons of food. Now it could arrive as soon as tomorrow as the fighting continues there. And the Houthi rebels launch more attacks on cargo ships off Yemen. Chris Livesay has the story.
Houthi rebels strike again, vowing to escalate military operations during Ramadan in support of the oppressed Palestinian people, says a spokesman. 2 missiles failed to strike the cargo ship Pinocchio off the coast.
It is pretty wild that these, like, we went from the Houthis are just like, fuck around and find out. The Houthis are going to see the finding out part of the fuck around part to like consistent bombing in Sana'a to, okay, maybe we can't stop these guys from continuously taking pot shots at ships that actually still continue through the Red Sea and don't communicate with the Houthis at all on where they're taking their cargo.
Coast of Yemen. But repeated threats like these have disrupted global trade for months, drawing retaliation from the U.S. and Britain, who consider them an Iran-backed terror group and not the defenders of the people of Gaza. Now forced to celebrate the holy month of Ramadan, where shelter has been turned into rubble and surgical gloves into balloons.
Yeah, all these liberals are like, you're about to see why America doesn't. All these liberals were just hitting the, this is why we don't have healthcare, lol, line over and over again.
We didn't wish Ramadan to come under these conditions, says Muhammad Abu Matar. It has the taste of blood. In Jerusalem, during this time of prayer and fasting, scuffles have become routine over Israeli security restrictions on entering Muslim holy sites.
Muslims are heading to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. It's been a flashpoint in Ramadan's past, and this year, with the war in Gaza, tensions are boiling.
These Palestinians in Jerusalem have just broken their fast. They can't eat during daylight. These Palestinians in Gaza can't eat.
I just want to show you this. I want to show you something very important here, okay? If you want to understand what our policy has been as like a deterrence, I guess, very important moment from January 18 comes to mind.
Are the airstrikes in Yemen working?
He says, are the airstrikes in Yemen working?
Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they
Biden says, no, they're not. Are they stopping the Houthis? No.
going to continue? Yes.
Are we going to continue? Yes. Yeah. In January, the Houthis are about to see why America doesn't have free healthcare. March 2024, have the Houthis become unstoppable? This is something that I keep repeating over and over again. It is the reason why throughout history, it has played out in the exact same fucking way over and over again. The side that has significantly more to lose is always going to lose out in the end because these are wars of attrition. The Houthis were already starving. They had withstood a genocide by the UAE and, more importantly than the UAE, Saudi Arabia for years and years. This is not conjecture. I'm not making this up. This is the American assessment.
Because they're running out of food.
That was Chris Livesay from Jerusalem reporting.
Before we get to Haiti, there are some key updates here. Number one, turns out a diplomatic source told Jerusalem Post that the Gaza maritime route was Netanyahu's idea. Wow. According to the source, on October 22nd, 2 weeks following the war's outbreak, Netanyahu discussed with President Biden the concept of delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza via the sea. Bitch, why don't you fucking deliver aid by not bombing the aid that's being delivered through the regular routes where you can actually deliver a shit ton of aid? It's incredible to me that the supposed concessions that Biden extracted still came from Netanyahu. Like, what the fuck? Now, Netanyahu is a liar, as are many Israeli officials. They have routinely lied over and over again. They're very consistently liars. So maybe he's just lying here and it was actually Brandon's idea. I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to make Brandon look bad in the Western world, which he regularly does do. It does go along with that. So I don't know. I genuinely do not know if I can take this at face value because Benjamin Netanyahu lies all the fucking time. The irony, of course, is that in order to build this fucking offshore pier, this temporary pier, Benjamin Netanyahu did allow trucks to go in, except not the type of sweetie saying Israelis are liars is actually an anti-Semitic trope. No, it is not. And don't even make this joke right now. Anyway, turns out we do have the capability of bringing in trucks into the Gaza Strip. It just the trucks that Benjamin Netanyahu is allowing into the Gaza Strip are the ones that are constructing the fucking pier. The objective is not to deliver food. The objective is to relieve international pressure. Maybe he also wants American troops on the ground. Biden keeps saying there will be no American troops on the ground. According to a source on October 22nd, 2 weeks following the war's outbreak, Netanyahu discussed with President Biden the concept of delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza via the sea. It was a pre-outlined strategy all the way back on October 22nd. Then on October 21st, Prime Minister Netanyahu outlined a strategy to Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulides. In addition, the matter was revisited on January 19th during a dialogue between Prime Minister Netanyahu and the President of the United States, where Netanyahu proposed, according to the source, I want to suggest setting up a team to explore maritime supply through Cyprus after a thorough inspection of all goods. This source, close to the Prime Minister, insinuated that Biden was simply implementing a plan by Netanyahu, not actually initiating anything new. The source spoke with Jerusalem Post at a time of heightened diplomatic tensions between Biden and Netanyahu. I don't know. I don't know if this is real or not, because both sides obviously are known for lying, but the number one liars are almost always on the Israeli side. The American side is basically repeating Israeli lies half the time. So I don't know. It could be real. It could have been Benjamin Netanyahu saying, like, this is a good way to relieve international pressure. Exactly. And maybe he didn't say anything this entire time, because if he had chirped about how we should find mechanisms of delivering aid to the Palestinians on October 22nd, someone in the Knesset might have executed him. So maybe he recognizes the continuation of the ethnic cleansing campaign. You condemn the USA every goddamn day of my life. The source spoke with Jerusalem Post at a time of heightened diplomatic pressure. Biden made the headlines at his State of the Union address to Congress last Thursday when he announced that the U.S. military planned to build an emergency temporary port off Gaza coastline to help facilitate the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. He made the statement in light of the hunger crisis in Gaza and to underscore the U.S. commitment to helping Palestinian people during Israel's military campaign to destroy Hamas. This also does track with, like, Biden's experience here, where, like, the only time he is, like, even remotely considerate of Palestinians if he gets the go-ahead from Benjamin Netanyahu or the Israeli side in general. So that is actually the other reason why I'm saying, like, place. Hasan is a prison guard. Yeah, I have to make her lay on that thing instead of the ground, because her laying on the ground is actually hurting her. Yet another instance where I know better. She's not allowed on the ground, because when she's on the ground, she gets blisters because her bones start rubbing on her elbows, and then those blisters turn into hot spots that she licks with an open wound. This is pure cope analysis. The new port is for Israel's new LNG offshore deposit access, the ones Egypt wanted. I know everybody keeps saying this. I don't know. I don't know. I am not going to make these assertions without more evidence of the matter. It does provide a very neat, real reason for something like this to occur, but I don't think that a port. God, she's so fucking cute. It's crazy. I love her so much. Yeah, I'm looking at you. What? You embarrassed? Don't. She's like, okay, well, I can't get up. She's sassy. She's sassy pants. What are you looking at? She's so well behaved. I agree. The move was also viewed as a criticism of Netanyahu by the United States, with Biden stating in a speech on Thursday that Israel could and should do more to help Palestinians in Gaza. Years before the Gaza war, Israel Katz, now the foreign minister, had drawn up plans for a maritime route via Cyprus involving a floating island. The project was never executed, but he revived it after the war began on October 7th. Okay, that makes more sense. One of the complicating factors with a maritime route was the absence of a port in Gaza big enough to handle cargo ships. This way, they get to control a maritime route through Gaza. That makes sense. Israel has welcomed Biden's announcement of a military operation to build a temporary port. Yeah. Anyway, Senate Dems say blocking weapon shipments on the table if Israel invades Rafah. The remarks made by Chris Van Hollen come amid pressure from Democrats for President Joe Biden to take a tougher tag in his rift with Netanyahu over Israel's strategy in Gaza. It'd be real crazy if the congressional Democrats vote to veto this, but there is enough or vote against it, but there's enough votes in Senate from Democrats and Republicans alike that will continue, and Biden will actually vote for it. Biden will actually sign it. Congressional action to block U.S. arms sales to Israel is certainly something that's on the table if Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu launches a large-scale invasion of Rafah, a top senator said Tuesday. It also does seem like senators are urging Biden to stop arming Israel, citing violation of U.S. aid law, which, it is. A group of Democratic senators urged President Biden on Monday to stop providing offensive weapons to Israel for the war against Hamas until it lifts restrictions on U.S.-backed humanitarian aid going into Gaza. In a letter to Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont, and 7 Democrats argued that by continuing to arm Israel, Mr. Biden was violating the Foreign Assistance Act, which bars military support from going to any nation that restricts the delivery of humanitarian aid. This is true. They're like, hey, you can keep using the offensive weapons in Gaza to do the genocide, but just let the aid in. Here's an update on the Gaza hostage talks as well. We're going to move on from this after the update. Barak Ravid says, Israeli officials claim that in recent days, Israel received indications from Qatari and Egyptian mediators that point to shifts among Hamas's leadership that may lead within days to progress that will allow moving to serious negotiations on a deal. A senior Israeli official said that Qatar and Egypt had significantly increased their pressure on Hamas, including threats from Qatar to expel senior Hamas officials from Doha, which was confirming a report in the Wall Street Journal, even though the Wall Street Journal has shown itself to be unreliable throughout this entire process. The Israeli official said, Hamas understands that the ball is in their court. We see pressure that did not exist before and hope that it will show results. There is relatively more optimism than a few days ago. I think this reframes the entire conversation the conversation is shifted directly off of the hands of Israel in this circumstance, because Hamas's original conditions for hostage negotiations was absolutely valid and decent and actually would play well if the Western media ever fucking showed it. It was a step-by-step push towards a permanent ceasefire. The Israeli officials said Hamas understands the ball's in their court. Israeli officials emphasized that Israel is still waiting on an official answer from Hamas to see if the organization does indeed change direction and is ready to move for more serious negotiations based on the Paris framework. Qatar and Egypt told Israel they will expect to receive such an answer in the next 2 days. In a few days, we will know where this is going. If there's an answer from Hamas, it will be the beginning of negotiations. The Israeli official said, if that's the case, we will sit and hold internal discussions to decide what we are ready for and what we are not. In any case, we want the next meeting with the mediators to be a serious one for negotiations on the details of the agreement. Still ridiculous that this is being presented as though Hamas are not cooperating in the negotiations, when in fact they did. And then Israel was like, well, we need like detailed placements of which hostages are where and whether they're alive or not. And we won't come to the table until you give us that. And they were like, we can't give you that. We're not going to give you that. Look at the fucking negotiation we presented. And it blows my fucking mind. It's like, they're like, no, we want to keep bombing. We want to keep bombing. If you care about the hostages, you wouldn't keep fucking bombing. Hamas is trying to go for a permanent ceasefire, step by step, with a release of hostages in increments that start off with the Ramadan period and continue beyond the Ramadan period to ensure a permanent ceasefire, knowing full well that the international community will pressure Israel if there is a continued ceasefire. If it's 7 days, it's not enough. But if it's fucking 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, everybody understands that the appetite for genocide is going to, regardless of what the Israeli appetite for genocide is, the appetite for genocide from the international community will go away, or defending genocide will go away. I mean, I agree with the ceasefire, but I feel like the fact that Hamas isn't providing the list is sus, or rather, I can't think of a reason as to why not, at least none that are good. I mean, probably the reason why they are not releasing is because a bunch of hostages died under Israeli rocket fire, and they don't want to reveal how little hostages they have remaining, or if like 10 of them died or whatever. The other reason is because they have no current communications with half of the fucking militancy groups without a ceasefire. It's probably the other reason. This is why a ceasefire is a necessity regardless. Like, it's a logistical necessity for the hostage release to occur. Do you understand? And if a ceasefire comes in, this will be the only way for there to be hostage swaps, obviously. As we know, Israel blows up their own hostages regularly. Come on now. But having said that, if a ceasefire were to occur, then you can actually have on-the-ground investigators, like third-party investigators that can also cover the atrocities of Israel. Because remember, in the 7 days, in the 7-day ceasefire period, that's precisely what happened. People were able to see a clearer picture of what was going on in Gaza because the only foreign journalists that were allowed into Gaza were no longer just foreign journalists that were being embedded. If you recall, Clarissa Ward literally snuck into Gaza with Qatari, with a Qatari healthcare team. That was one of the first instances where Western media was able to offer clear coverage from the ground directly with their own reporting that didn't go through the Israeli military censor. Because every other piece of news that you have seen of Gaza that you see on CNN that wasn't directly recorded from a phone camera of a Palestinian who is like 3 seconds away from being fucking lasered by an Israeli American weapons that Israel is using is always going to be foreign reporters embedded with the IDF, where the IDF has final censor power. This is, by the way, openly admitted. Like, this is not a suspicion of mine. This is not, I'm not making this up. It sounds unreasonable. It sounds insane, but it is the truth.
CNN reported from Gaza under IDF escort at all times. As a condition for journalists to join this embed, media outlets had to submit footage filmed in Gaza to the Israeli military for review. CNN retained editorial control over the final report. And here is Oren's report.
Yeah. Also, here's a quick moment of "Are we the bad guys?" Which instead of showing you Joey Rex tweet, I'm going to show you someone who at least like all these people that would normally fucking despise me, but they will respect because he's a Washington Post journalist. I mean, here it is, literally. It's just like, there's no way you don't see what you're doing. This is like deliberate, right? I just don't understand it. Hello? The fuck's going on here? Like, this is so perfectly American too, because listen, we're talking about the Navy, okay? All these dudes did not join because they thought they were gonna go fucking laser brown kids. They joined because they thought, oh, it'll be a fun little journey on a boat for a little bit, and then I can get my fucking college paid. So half of them are gay as hell and super fucking nerdy. It's just like, I think that it is ridiculous to not recognize what's going on here. You know what I mean? Theater kid behavior. I mean, this is like, I would say this is a poverty draft in display. Okay. That's what I would say. Like, I don't think these dudes think that they are the bad guys at all. It is pretty funny that they are doing the bad guy thing though, not recognizing that they are the bad guys in this circumstance. Did you see how they brought trucks into Gaza? How odd that they can make Israel open the gates for these, but they can't for the food trucks. And the U.S. and Israel deliberately starving Palestinians. Truck entered Gaza, however, not to extract the wounded and martyrs from under the rubble. No, families are left to unbury their dead barehanded. The machinery is to implement America's sea corridor and impose an American-Israeli military base. That's insane. Like, why? Every fucking day, man. Every day. It's just every day I feel like I'm losing my goddamn mind. Why? Because it is so obvious. There is one solution. It's to get Israel to stop blowing shit up. Get Israel to stop blowing shit up. Because it's not like the fucking humanitarian convoy that goes in is under serious threat from anyone else other than Israel. Like, Israel is the one blowing them up. Every goddamn day we find a new, a new UN convoy getting fucking lasered by Israel. And then they're like, yeah, sorry, we just can't bring humanitarian aid in here. We just can't stop ourselves from fucking blowing your shit up. Turns out you can actually. It's going to be crazy when they like build this, right? It's a joint mission and they're building it together and then they're still going to blow it up. It's going to be wild when it happens. Israel's going to build a port and then claim Hamas attacks it. Yeah. And then we're going to have a 7-week fucking conversation about like, was it Hamas that attacked the port? Does Hamas legitimately have Mark 84 rockets? Because it seems like this was a 2-ton munition that was deployed into the port. How did this happen? And then everyone will be like, you're wrong for fucking not immediately assuming that Hamas blew up the fucking port. Yeah. And then America will quietly reveal that it was Israel, but like, it's fine. You know, we'll urge them to do an investigation on why they decided to blow up American service members or some shit. Classic stuff. And also, yeah, the seaport's not even going to be ready for like 2 months. Aren't you bored of this meta? It's not a meta. These are real people that are fucking dying, okay? For me, it's important. For me, it's important to cover this kind of thing and talk about it. Obviously, I'm going to try to cover it as like in like cheerier terms, so it's more interesting, more dynamic for people who are out of touch and not really interested, you know? So the language that I use can sometimes come across as like though it's not like serious issues, but it is serious issues. Bro called it a meta, absolutely insensitive. Yeah, of course bro called it a meta because bro is living in America and very out of touch. That's it.